Welcome, one and all, to an Iceberg chart detailing some of the most infamous art and artists on the internet. As an artist myself who's been on the internet for many years, I've seen some things that I pray no living soul would ever have to witness. From the trenches of DeviantArt, Twitter, YouTube, and Tumblr, this chart is going to go through some of the most well-known to least-known entries. Some of these are more mild and tame, while others are a confusing mess of horrible decisions created by horrible people who will also be mentioned. Now, there is a lot of ground to cover, and this iceberg barely scratches the surface of things to discuss. If you have any entries you'd like to see in another video, please let me know in the comments. We're also going to be talking about a lot of dark and gross topics, so this is your warning. Anyway, with that all being said, let's begin. As the name implies, this is any and all artwork that has the intention of sexual gratification for either the artist or the viewer, specifically with more unorthodox areas of the body, certain situations, or just objects in general. With the rise of the internet, this sort of art has been made much more easy to access and view. Good for the gooners and coomers out there, I guess, but not so much for everybody else. Some examples of fetish art genres include vor, inflation, armpits, feet, giantess, diapers, bodily waste, ENF. I also want to make it clear that honestly, it's perfectly fine if you have some weird fetishes and like to draw or consume them. There's only really a problem once you start showing these images to people who aren't comfortable with them, or children in general. As long as you're keeping it within the confines of your 18+ community, then go crazy, I guess. A majority of you watching probably already know who this person is, so I'm going to try my best to explain in the simplest, briefest way possible, because there's hours upon hours of lore to uncover on your own time. Dubbed as the most documented individual probably ever, Christine Weston Chandler is a 42-year-old high-functioning autistic trans woman with a long list of controversies and mishaps. This was accompanied by a decades-long trolling campaign the internet has taken out on Chris, which has led to incident after incident, and a 60+ episode-long documentary series by Gino Samuel. The reason why they're on this iceberg is because of a comic they made back in the early 2000s, which has piqued the interest of millions of people, that comic being Sonichu. What originally started out as the adventures and life of Sonichu slowly just turned into a comic about Chris themselves. This comic is, well, it's not good. But that hasn't stopped Chris from becoming one of the most infamous artists on the internet. On August 1st, 2021, they were arrested for the crime of incest that they did to their own mother, who is 82 years old and may possibly have dementia.
Christian, what's up? Kill stream, baby! When you get out, let's do the kill stream! Look me up! What charges dropped?
Where the case was later dropped by the court. Again, I literally cannot fathom explaining everything in this video. If you want more lore, then go check out Gino Samuel or any other creators. The Wojak, or Feels Guy, is a popular meme format that's taken many variants throughout the years, usually used to mock somebody or represent a certain type of person by drawing them in a very unflattering way, using the base Wojak as a template. The origins of the original Wojak are relatively unknown, but we do know that they were named after a member of CrowdChan called Wojak. Wojak says he found the original image off a Polish image board, but the true artist behind the Wojak is still unknown. For the most part, this meme has stayed on image boards like 4chan and the like in the 2010s, but around 2020 is where the Wojak completely blew up all over the internet. This is where you get your chads, virgins, tradwives, ethoughts, etc. And also whatever the hell these variants are. A subspecies of the Wojak emerged from this, being dubbed the Soyjak. Soyjaks are a combination of the Wojak and the soy boy. Soy boys are a phenomenon of men who get made fun of for, simply put, being losers. The soy drinking, Nintendo Switch loving, patchy beard having, glasses wearing, wife sharing, Marvel slop enjoying, vegan consuming, science obsessing guy that seems to be everywhere is the essence of one of these soy boys. Soyjaks often depict these men pointing at things that they might enjoy or in various positions that make them look more annoying. These are often traced over real images of people and spread around, leading to people copying the poses in real life to further make fun of them. In 2020, the user Soot created a new image board as a joke called Soyjak.party after the Quay board was banned on 4chan, used for exclusively posting Soyjaks. This is where things get weird and controversial. Soyjak.party, otherwise known as the Shardy, had sort of an island effect for Soyjaks. These jacks would devolve into abhorrent and incomprehensible abominations when given their own exclusive platform to thrive on. On screen are some examples. Then things, of course, got offensive, and started to depict ethnic groups and other visible minorities in horrible ways, as things usually go on image boards. For more information, check out these videos on screen. Tim Buckley is a webcomic artist, mostly known for his series Control-Alt-Delete, following the self-insert character of Ethan, his girlfriend and epic gamer girl Lila, and his roommate Lucas. The webcomic mostly follows Ethan and his hijinks with video games. As a concept, I guess, it's kind of hard to describe. They just play video games, or talk about video games, or try to get more video games, or make jokes about video games, etc. It's very one note. The whole webcomic is just, heh, only real gamers get this one. Suffice to say, it's not good. Tim decided to draw one set of stock images back in like 2002, and he's been using them ever since for almost a decade, with very little improvement in his art style. It's just extremely lazy and not appealing to look at the same pose for the 1000th time. Eventually, the webcomic dropped the whole video game-centered focus, thank God. But Ethan just became like every other adult animated comedy protagonist, meaning eccentric and wacky adventures in life with zero improvement to the writing. People obviously did not like this, and got upset that they couldn't laugh at what the f***? But Tim didn't care. On February 15th, 2008, Control-Alt-Delete entered its pregnancy arc, where Lila tells Ethan that she's pregnant, and then he pisses himself. Keep in mind, this arc was inspired by real-life events that happened in his life, meaning his actual girlfriend was pregnant during this time. Sadly though, on June 2nd, 2008, Tim posted his most infamous and well-known strip to the public, where Lila has a miscarriage, titled Loss. And yes, this was also inspired by real-life events. People did not like the strip at all, mainly because of the huge change in tone that came out of nowhere. Control-Alt-Delete was supposed to be a comedy about video games. Now it's delving into real-life miscarriages and dark topics. Not to mention being pretty disrespectful to his own girlfriend, where he draws his OCs going through what she had to go through, almost like he's playing dolls. Loss actually has a part 2 and 3 with the aftermath of the miscarriage, and then gets right back to the jokes only a week later that same month. The strip garnered so much negative attention that people made several iterations of it with different characters and scenarios. This has been going on for over 15 years now. It's gotten to the point where this minimalist version with a bunch of lines is used as sort of a Where's Waldo game to see if you can find Lost in the wild. Funnily enough, on June 2nd, 2018, for the 10-year anniversary of Lost, Tim actually posted this strip where Ethan smirks at the audience at the end as an acknowledgement to the meme status of the strip. Hotdiggedydemon, also known as Max Gilardi, is an animator and YouTuber who's been posting online since 2003, and YouTube since around 2007, uploading his first video after dropping out of the Art Institute of Boston. Max is most well known for many original animations and parodies he's made throughout the years, like Wacky Game Jokes for Kids, Jerry, the .mov series, and most recently Brain Dump. However, some of the animations and drawings he's made haven't really gone over too well with people online, landing him in many controversies for his more edgy and shock humor era past. One of the most notable controversies being a drawing he posted on Tumblr on May 1st, 2015, called Steven's Universe, where he drew Steven with stereotypical Jewish features like a long nose and all that. There's also the lesser known Steven... I can't say that one, but you get the picture. Not to mention a lot of his series containing many slurs, which I can't show you for obvious reasons. However, in the Brain Dump episode, wow, world's biggest house of cards, 2021 world record. Max directly addresses his controversial past and apologizes for a lot of the more offensive shock jock humor he was doing back then.
Tell me, silly bald man, do you have a dream? Well, that question kinda has a complicated answer. I used to want to be an artist, but I bungled that dream along the way somewhere. Irreparably. Burned too many bridges, squandered too many opportunities, made too many mistakes. Now I'm just trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life now that everything I used to want is no longer on the table. And to make ends meet, I humiliate myself on the internet for money. Which I suppose is all an elongated way of saying, I'm a YouTuber. I'm sorry for all my problematic jokes. I'm sorry for everyone I've ever been obnoxious to because I was too socially to know how to interact the right way. I want to be a good person. I really do. But nobody ever taught me how because I never had any friends. And I'm sorry I said just now. I know I'm not supposed to say that word anymore, but it's hard. because I've been saying it my whole life and I forget sometimes. I don't mean nothing by it. I just forget is all.
He says his focus from then on will be on more meaningful work that isn't just made to piss people off as a joke. I obviously have a lot of bias here because I've been a fan of Max since the Jerry days, but I'm glad he's moved on from blatantly edgy humor to focus on other projects, which honestly I still enjoy. Stonetoss, also known as Hans Christian Grabner, is a webcomic artist primarily focusing on political cartoons and comic strips in that sphere. The Stonetoss webcomic began in June of 2017 and quickly grew a fanbase from there, where he would later join Twitter and became enemy number one given the content of his comics. You see, Stonetoss's comics fall into two categories: edgy satire that's actually kind of funny sometimes, or alt-right leaning conspiracy theories, and offensive prejudice against women, trans people, gay people, minorities, etc. Many people call Stonetoss a neo-Nazi given the kind of material he draws, and it's not really hard to understand why. Stonetoss has responded to these claims, assuring that he's not a neo-Nazi because I have featured works from other artists, including multiple artists of color. Ah, I see. The old "I have tons of black friends" excuse. An absolute classic. He's also friends with another infamous online artist named Antunes, who I'll get into later. Stonetoss began selling some of his work as NFTs, which apparently sold out in 20 minutes, gaining him $2 million in the process, including the Among Us meme he was involved in that blew up around early 2021, and also one of George Floyd. In March of 2024, users managed to find Stonetoss's real identity and published it online, which included his real name and face. He of course then went to Elon Musk and got him to suspend all the accounts that doxed him. Honestly, while Stonetoss tells people he isn't a neo-Nazi or harbors any of those views, it becomes kind of apparent what his views are on certain topics by reading his comic. If he had just stuck to being funny and stopped with the right-wing stuff, he probably wouldn't have had people dox him. Hey, it's Richie from the future. I just want to pop in and say that I don't think anyone necessarily deserves to get doxed, but what I am saying is that Stonetoss did piss off a lot of people on purpose, so I'm not surprised that some people took it a little too far and decided to dox him. The CalArts Style is a certain art style that is/was popular for cartoons around the 2010s. People started to notice that almost every currently airing cartoon had the same similar art style, having originated from the students of the California Institute of the Arts. This style was criticized heavily for looking too simplistic and being overused. For example, every character has a bean mouth, thin line work, round proportions, etc. This image here represents a lot of the talking points surrounding this debate. Things escalated quickly when a new show called Thundercats Roar debuted its trailer in 2019, which pissed a lot of people off with the art direction that the show took.
Hey there, everyone! My name's Lion-O, and I'm the star of a new show called Thundercats Roar! Wait, you don't know what a Thundercat is? Well, let's start small. I'm a Thundercat, and this is my magic slicing stick, Sword of Omens! Give me sight beyond sight!
Now look, I understand that people are getting sick and tired of this art style, and trust me, so am I. But it's not really the fault of the animators who work on these shows. A lot of the time, it's the higher-ups and executives who make these decisions because they think they know what's best for the IP. In other words, how can I turn this cartoon into a profit? Not to mention, we've had many fads in animation for certain art styles since forever. All the cartoons you see here are from the 80s with the exact same art style. These things come and go. And thankfully, it looks like the 2020s are ushering in a new era for animation and art styles. Jesus Christ, where the f do I begin with this guy? Shadman, also known as Shadai Perjan, is probably the most well-known and infamous artist on this list. In short, Shad makes NSFW drawings and posts them online for his very degenerate fanbase. He's become one of the most hated and controversial figures on the internet, and has sprung back into the limelight with the Ava Chris Tyson situation recently. Shadman in his early days attended art school in Switzerland, where he was later kicked out due to highly illegal material. Now, if you've read your history books, you know this doesn't end well. This became a big part of Shad's identity later on in his online career. Eventually, he found success as an NSFW artist on Newgrounds in 2009, also dabbling into comics here and there. Shad's entire brand and persona was centered around being as humanely offensive and edgy as possible, drawing the most f***ed up and cruel things you can imagine. Instead of being blacklisted or taken down though, He actually grew to become insanely popular on the internet in the 2010s. It seems as though he was also friends with and collaborated with dozens of different YouTubers, artists, and animators. Somehow, this guy whose profile picture is based off of a Schutzstaffel SS officer managed to get all this attention and nobody seemed to care. Although most followed and interacted with Shad only because of his meme status, as the guy who drew f***ed up shit. Not many people knew of his controversies and followed him because he was just a big meme online. As he grew in notoriety, he started to release some of that highly illegal content on social media and his website. This was Shad's lolly art, which were drawings of presumably underage girls doing lewd acts. Now many of you might be saying, come on Richie, they're all fictional, they're not real, it's not hurting anyone. And sure, yes, they aren't real. But don't you think it's still at the very least super weird to enjoy and consume this? Yeah, they might be fictional characters, but you're still getting off to the idea of them being underage and the way they're physically drawn. Also, this argument gets completely tossed out the window when you realize Shad has drawn multiple real-life children in NSFW scenarios with full graphic detail. One of them was of Daphne Keane getting essayed, who was 12 at the time. He was later sent to cease and desist by her lawyers. Another was the 11-year-old YouTuber Lieutenant Corbus. This was after he said he regretted making this type of art and promised to stop. And possibly the worst of all was when Shad promised to draw Keemstar's 7-year-old daughter giving Trump a blowjob if he won the election. And of course, out of all, he decided to keep that promise. Keemstar unsurprisingly threatened to call the cops, and Shad only took it down because of the YouTuber Colossalus Crazy confronting him about it, who he had respect for. We also can't forget that time when he drew Ed Gould getting essayed by the Grim Reaper almost immediately after he died of cancer in 2012. By 2019, his antics had caught up with him as he revealed that he was being investigated by Hollywood and thankfully would stop with the lolly content. Not to mention all the drama and burned bridges because of his actions. Many of his friends had dropped him at this point and nobody wanted anything to do with him anymore. Later, on October 28th of 2021, Shad was arrested for assault and attempted murder with a deadly weapon in Los Angeles. It was also revealed that he was now a heroin addict and had sold most of his art supplies to fund his crippling addiction to drugs. This is probably what caused the incident, actually. Shad somehow was released from jail after this incident, and is currently roaming the streets of LA. Truly the Epstein of the internet. Racist Mario is an animated parody of Mario Kart made by the animation channel Flashgits, uploaded on August 5th, 2014. The animation follows Mario as he cleanses the racetrack of all the non-Nintendo characters, before moving on to everyone else who he sees as race traitors. Get it? He's a racist because of, racing. Anyway, Mario brutally maims, bludgeons, injures, and kills almost every character in the animation, until Kratos from God of War manages to put his head on a stick at the very end, winning the race. This animation was quite controversial, with a lot of people who didn't find the joke of, look, family-friendly thing is now adult and violent, to be funny. To be fair, the entire shtick of Flashgits is almost exactly that, so this is pretty on brand for them. There's also a lot of edgy jokes and a very sexual thumbnail mixed in with brutal violence, which didn't help it staying monetized for long. In fact, on April 23rd of 2017, YouTube directly told Flashgits to change the thumbnail or have the entire video be removed. So in protest, they decided to change Princess Peach from being topless to wearing a burqa. Watching this video again after 10 years kinda makes me realize how much my humor has changed, because I just sat there with a straight face wondering how I laughed my ass off at this in 2014. It's not even the edginess or shock value that I don't like, there's just no joke besides violence. Khyle, or Khylery, is an immensely popular Twitter artist from the Philippines that mainly draws popular memes with the inclusion of anime characters, or just humorous art pieces in general, sometimes towing the line between offensive and funny, as you're about to see. Khyle made their account in 2016, however their oldest post is from 2020. Maybe they just lurked around for 4 years and started to post randomly, or maybe there's some lost media and artworks that are now deleted. Anyway, as you can see from these images, their drawings started out in a very different style than what we're used to today. They're more rough around the edges and sketch-like, instead of fully rendered painting-like pieces. This would continue for a while until April of 2021, where we started to see a lot more anime content and the early stages of their current style. This new style blew up in popularity, and each post got thousands of likes. This would continue until a certain incident that happened on a very specific day. On January 27th, 2023, Khyle posted this piece which shows Anya from Spy X Family on a field trip, being picked up and crying. At first, everything seems pretty normal, until you start to look closer. Up here, we see an intentionally designed sign that reads, Arbeit macht frei, or in English, work sets you free. This sign appears at the gate of the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland. It should also be noted that January 27th is also Holocaust Remembrance Day, so people didn't exactly take this one too well. The post went completely viral and people had many differing opinions. A lot of people didn't appreciate the Holocaust joke being made on Holocaust Remembrance Day, or the fact that somebody drew anime characters at a place where millions of people died. Others had a different take and suggested that Anya was sad because she was learning about what happened there, and there isn't really any joke to be made. Others pointed out that the children in the background had pickaxes, which implied that they were being sent to the camp to work. The post was deleted almost immediately after the backlash. However, they just kinda kept posting more art like nothing happened. In fact, that post propelled them into even higher amounts of fame. And Khyle to this day continues what they're known for. In 2020, John Bob was probably one of the fastest growing Twitter artists / animators out there, mainly known for a multitude of collaborations and networking he did with other artists online. John began his rise in 2019 from a choose your own adventure animated series he did, where his followers would pick out the next scene to be animated. This went viral and got him in contact with a ton of huge artists and animators that praised his style and talent. Most of John's work from then on was collaborations, by bringing artists together and making a friend group. It honestly felt like this guy was the main character and everybody was his friend. They were even on his banner. Also, pay attention to this guy here. He's more important down later in the Iceberg. More people would join and meet others, almost like he had made his own networking page. John's personality was very wholesome, kind, and nice. At least, that's how he presented himself online. On his private account, John would make many questionable tweets that went from just odd to, "Oh my god, why are you sharing this?" including NSFW of him and his friends, probably without their consent. On August 18th, a mutual friend of John named Get Good Nami was outed as being a groomer by a 15-year-old victim, sharing that Nami also had other victims he had successfully obtained lewd photos of. Later, on August 31st, John decided to shoot himself in the foot and randomly confess he sexted a 15-year-old at the age of 18, even pestering her to do RP and draw NSFW. Except this wasn't completely out of the blue. John claims that he had immense guilt for his own actions after seeing Nami get called out, and decided to be righteous about his own misgivings, essentially confessing out of the goodness of his heart. This was a lie. He mentions in the initial tweet that the victim contacted him after a while to confront him about his behavior towards her. Leaked messages also show him panicking after she threatened to out him, deciding ultimately that he would do it first. This was probably done to garner sympathy and try to paint himself as a good person, as mentioned before. The backlash from this post was so strong that he pussied out and deactivated his account, but then decided to come back, apologize, then deactivate a second time, this time for good. All of the friends he had made were obviously disgusted by these actions and ceased all contact with him. All except the guy I mentioned earlier, who seemed a little too sympathetic towards him being outed. Obviously, none of his friends knew of his actions behind the scenes, and just thought he was a cool guy they could share their art with. John Bob has since not returned, thankfully, and I hope to God he never does. If you want more information, check out the video by Bedhead Bernie, linked below. William Borba is a professional illustrator and comic artist with years of experience in the industry. He also owns a DeviantArt account where he posts some of his illustrations and comics he does in his free time for fun. After seeing Zootopia in 2016, Borba was inspired to create a ton of Zootopia alternate universe comics in March of 2017, most of which see Judy and Nick in a relationship. Now, when you sit down and think about it, how exactly would interspecies breeding work within the context of this movie? In real life, the offspring usually can't reproduce themselves, so they die off and can't continue the hybrid legacy. We don't even see any interspecies couples or children in the movie, so it'll be a mystery as to how they're going to handle that in the sequel. Borba also asked this question, and created a parody comic called I Will Survive, dealing with the ramifications of a bunny getting impregnated by a fox. The comic itself is available online, and I suggest you all go give it a read, because it's actually genuinely compelling and has a crazy twist in the sequels. Spoilers, but Judy wants an abortion and Nick wants to keep it, leading to a huge fight. Judy is rightfully scared about what's going to happen because in this universe, this has never happened before. Would it survive? Would it kill her? Would it go rabid and kill them both? Would they call them boxes or funnies? Really important questions to think about. Personally, here's my headcanon for the sake of Disney being family friendly. So, when the child is in the uterus, there's a 50-50 chance it's the species of either parent, similar to how the sex of the child is 50-50 as well. Meaning they can either have a fox that's a boy or girl, or a bunny that's a boy or a girl. Anyway, the comic ends up going viral, and this panel is probably the one you're most familiar with. Because of how it ends though, people started to speculate that Borba was injecting some sort of pro-life propaganda into the comic, even though he states multiple times that it should not be taken seriously and that it's all just for fun. This led to Borba creating a sequel where he continued the story further. Those, however, didn't go as viral as the first one did. He makes it abundantly clear that these are all jokes and don't contain any of his real-life opinions on these touchy subjects. I highly recommend reading them though because they're honestly really good. Squizxy, also known as Hyojin Choi, was an artist and animator most well known for her animations on YouTube and live streams on Twitch. Hyojin had been posting on Tumblr and Twitter for a while, but her career was boosted around mid-2016 when she began appearing in the videos of the large YouTuber Pyrocynical.
Hey, I have a joke.
Zaptie is homosexual.
What's the joke?
You're making me really pissed. Get it?
I hate you.
I'm in a mech, and I'm playing with
Hyojin.
Eva, and she's in a mech.
I have cancer now.
It turns out the both of them were dating, and Pyro began to feature her a lot more, giving Hyojin a platform to post her art and animations to a larger audience. In fact, this is where I found her and became a fan because of our shared sense of humor. Hyojin also collaborated with a bunch of other online creators at the time, including Quite, King Ani, Bluesdank, Dolan Dark, Slazo, Lord Bung, and Akai Nail War. The last two, in fact, were frequent guests on her stream and had their own successful careers. They even formed a podcast together called the Pubcast. Already though, Hyojin garnered some controversies that I'm surprised most people don't talk about. She was accused of bullying someone named Giddy and also several others, by inviting them to group chats just to mock them. Allegedly, she also accused Giddy of wanting to sleep with the YouTuber NoFuckers, and mocked the death of her cat. There's also the accusation of animal abuse, but that was proven to be mostly highly exaggerated, so I'm not going to include it. However, this did get people digging into her past, and they found some things. It turns out Hyojin had a secret NSFW account where she would draw porn of YouTubers and whatever else she felt like. One of these drawings was of a then 16-year-old Eileen Ninetails, drawn in 2017. Now, Hyojin may have only been around 18 at the time, which is only 2 years, but that's still not an excuse to draw an SFW of someone underage, especially if you're legally recognized as an adult. There's also the heavy use of racial slurs in many videos you can find archived online, most of which come from when she was around 18 to 20. Now, I do remember her since then apologizing for saying these slurs on stream, but it didn't really help her reputation. Remember when I talked about a YouTuber she was friends with called Slazo? Well, around June of 2019, the artist Fizzy Pop made a call-out post accusing Slazo of abuse and essay against her while they were dating, where she was backed up by Hyojin and many of her friends because they trusted her. Long story short, it turns out the bulk of these allegations were either highly exaggerated or completely false, and Fizzy Pop ended up deleting her account. It was later revealed that Hyojin, Fizzy Pop, and many of the other accusers started a group chat discussing how they could meticulously take down Slazo and ruin him. After all this was exposed and they all started to feel the heat and pressure from angry fans on both sides, Hyojin made a suicide attempt. Thankfully, it was a failure, and she was placed in a mental ward for some time after being released. After the incident and the heat died down, Hyojin did eventually apologize to Slazo, as she was IRL friends with Fizzy Pop and placed more trust into her than somebody she only knew online. A lot of people felt as though this was insincere, but as 2019 came to a close, Hyojin kept chugging along doing live streams, animating, and drawing. At this point, she had broken up with Pyrocynical and began dating another YouTuber named Punkduck. This would eventually lead to the complete destruction of her career, as on July 19th, 2022, Punkduck would make a statement on Twitter talking about his abuser, that abuser being Hyojin. He states that Hyojin had been abusive to him both mentally, emotionally, and physically. This lasted from when they were dating in 2019 to 2021. She would smash his head into a wall, threaten his life with a kitchen knife, and also confess to all of this in a Discord DM. Hyojin went silent for 2 weeks before making a public apology. At this point though, people were not having it, and were sick and tired of her constant controversies and not learning from her past. This was the final nail in the coffin for her, as she hasn't returned online ever since, leaving her YouTube channel to dip below 1 million subscribers. Let me tell you guys, when I said I was a fan, I mean I was a huge fan of hers, at least until 2021 where I stopped watching. At that point, I didn't know about or begrudgingly forgave her for some of the controversies she had because of my bias as a huge fan. Not this though. Reading those messages filled me with an unbridled amount of rage. Nobody deserves to go through what Punkduck had to go through. And I really can't believe somebody would put up this facade of being a good person for so long. This entry is obviously very personal to me, but at the end of the day, you can't fully trust someone you're a fan of online. Be cautious and make sure to expose these people for who they truly are. And that is going to end part 1 of this iceberg. This is going to be a 3-part series that's going to delve deeper into those who aren't as well known as the ones I talked about here. There's also many entries that I forgot to include or just recently learned about, so enjoy a bonus section in the last video about entries I missed. Feel free to leave some in the comments too. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I've got a lot more stuff planned for this channel, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Good night, everyone.